The Kind Princess and the Pea Green Heart. Long ago, in a peaceful kingdom surrounded by blooming gardens, there lived a gentle princess named Liana. She was known not for her crown or her beauty, but for her kindness. She would help the poor, care for animals, and speak softly to everyone she met. One rainy evening, a tired young girl knocked on the palace gate. Her clothes were soaked, and her feet were muddy. The guards hesitated, but Princess Liana saw her from the window and quickly invited her inside. "Please, come in," Liana said warmly. "You must be cold and hungry." The girl smiled shyly. "Thank you, I've been walking for days." That night, the queen decided to test the girl. She placed a tiny pea under a tall stack of soft mattresses and beds. "Only a true princess can feel something so small," the queen whispered. The girl slept in the grand bed, but the next morning, she looked tired. "Did you sleep well?" asked the queen. "Oh, not really," the girl said gently. "There was something uncomfortable beneath me. I couldn't rest properly." The queen smiled proudly. She is a true princess. But Princess Liana stepped forward and said softly, "Anyone who has walked so far, tired and hungry, might feel even the smallest discomfort. That doesn't just make her a princess, it makes her human." The room fell silent. Liana then held the girl's hand and said, "Whether princess or not, she deserves kindness, warmth, and rest." The queen realized her mistake and nodded. "You were right, Liana. True royalty is not in comfort, but in compassion." From that day on, the girl stayed at the palace, not because she was tested, but because she was cared for. And Princess Liana became known as the kindest ruler the kingdom had ever seen. Sparkle's moral. True kindness matters more than titles, and even the smallest acts of care can change someone's life. Days turned into weeks, and the girl who had arrived on that stormy night slowly began to smile again. Her name was Amara. Though she had been shy at first, Princess Liana's kindness made her feel safe. Liana didn't treat Amara like a guest to be tested, but like a friend to be understood. Every morning, Liana would walk with Amara through the royal gardens. They watered flowers together, fed the birds, and spoke about their dreams. "Why are you always so kind?" Amara once asked. Liana smiled softly, "Because kindness is something everyone understands, even when words fail." Amara thought about this deeply. One afternoon, while walking through the village outside the palace, the two girls saw a young boy sitting alone. His clothes were torn, and he looked upset. Liana knelt beside him. "What's wrong?" The boy wiped his tears. "I lost the money my mother gave me, now we won't have food tonight." Without hesitation, Liana gave him the small pouch of coins she had. Amara was surprised. "But that was all you had with you?" Liana gently replied, "Then it was meant for him." That moment stayed in Amara's heart. Over time, Amara began helping too. She would assist in the kitchen, share her meals, and comfort those who came to the palace for help. The servants noticed something special, not just in Liana, but in Amara too. One evening, the queen called Amara to her chamber. "You have shown grace, patience, and kindness," the queen said. "Tell me, who are you really?" Amara hesitated, then spoke honestly. "I am not sure if I am a princess. I was raised by a kind woman who found me as a baby. She always told me, your heart will show who you truly are." The queen looked thoughtful. Later that night, Liana joined her mother and said, "Does it matter where she came from? Look at who she has become." The queen smiled slowly. "You are teaching me, my child." The next day, the queen made an announcement, "From this day forward, anyone who shows kindness, honesty, and courage will be welcomed in this palace, not for who they are born as, but for who they choose to be." Amara stood beside Liana, her eyes shining with happiness, not because she was called a princess, but because she had found a place where kindness mattered most. And in that kingdom, people began to believe that the smallest acts, like offering warmth, sharing food, or speaking gently, could be greater than any royal test. Sparkle's moral. Kindness is not proven by tests, but by actions. A true heart shines brighter than any crown. As the seasons changed, the kingdom itself began to transform. The queen's new rule, valuing kindness above status, spread far and wide. People no longer came to the palace hoping to prove they were special, they came to help, to share, and to care for one another. Princess Liana and Amara worked side by side every day. They visited villages, listened to people's worries, and found ways to make life better, not with grand gestures but with thoughtful ones. One winter, a terrible cold swept across the land. Many families fell ill, and food became scarce. Fear began to grow. Instead of staying safely inside the palace, Liana and Amara stepped forward. "We must help them," Liana said firmly. The queen nodded, now trusting her daughter's wisdom. "Then lead the way." The palace was open to everyone in need. Warm fires were lit, beds were prepared, and food was shared freely. Amara organized the kitchens, making sure no one went hungry, while Liana comforted the sick and spoke gentle words to ease their fears. One night, as snow fell heavily outside, a small child began to cry. He missed his parents, who were too ill to travel. Amara sat beside him and told him a soft story until he fell asleep. Liana watched quietly and smiled. "You've become stronger than you think," Liana said. Amara shook her head. "No, I've just learned from you." But Liana replied, "Kindness grows when it is shared. You carried it within you all along." Days later, the illness began to fade. Families reunited, and hope returned to the kingdom. The people gathered outside the palace, grateful not just for the help they received, but for the love they felt. The queen stepped forward and addressed everyone. "This kingdom has learned something important," she said. "True greatness is not measured by wealth or comfort, but by the care we show to one another." She then turned to Liana and Amara. "You have both shown what it truly means to be royal." Amara lowered her head humbly. "I never needed a crown," she said softly. Liana smiled. "And yet, you wear one in your heart." From that day on, the story of the tiny pea was no longer told as a test of sensitivity, but as the beginning of a greater lesson, that even the smallest things can remind us to care deeply for others. And so, the kingdom thrived, not because it had the richest palace, but because it had the kindest people. Sparkle's final moral. A true princess is not defined by comfort or birth, but by compassion, courage, and the kindness she shares with the world. Dizzy.